The West once again gets a favorable bounce in the lottery. What's better for the Nuggets between a Mavs winning and a Warriors winning outcome in the Western Conference Finals? And Caleb Martin? Question mark. This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen whenever you start your day. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can join the show roughly 10 a.m. Mountain Time every day. We're getting a little bit late start because Adam and I were chatting and complaining, mostly, quite honestly, about various things. On today's show, by the way, I enjoyed your musical rendition during our intro there, Adam. The humming was a nice. Can I ask that you hum more whenever we're doing the intro slate? On today's show, we'll talk about the lottery and the outcome of that and how we see it impacting the Western Conference. We'll talk about the Western Conference Finals between the Mavs and the Warriors. What's a better outcome for Denver? And in the last segment, we actually have some names for you. Talk about its potential and stress potential targets for the Denver Nuggets in free agency / trades this coming off season. Adam, first, how are you and how are the birds?
I'm good. Nothing to report on the birds. Only one note. I think it was yesterday. I saw a great blue heron catch a snake and eat it. I actually caught the whole thing. It was great.
I was out running one day. This is, I don't know, last year. Last year I was out running. I went to one of the trails between Fort Collins and Loveland. Nice day out. Just a nice path to go for a run on. And there was a hawk. And the hawk started following me. And I was like, oh.
Started following you.
No. And like, no, it was like, and it was very much giving me the vibes of like, you should leave now. That's what you should do, sir, is you should leave. We went to Rocky Mountain National this weekend.
It's my favorite place.
Friday. It's absolutely incredible. It's the best part about where I live is I am literally 35 minutes. I'm 35 minutes from Estes. It's so great. And
where'd you guys go? Like, what part was it?
We went
drive. Did you go for a hike?
We went. There's a section there that my daughter loves going there. My wife took her last year for like a picnic, and she's like raved about it since. So we went and did that again. I forget which area it is. It's on the north side of the park. There's a little. It's near I think the alluvial fan. Is what I say.
Yeah.
That area over there.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. I'm gonna do Black Lake. I haven't done Black Lake. I've done Sky Pond, but I haven't done Black Lake. That's on my list for the summer. People are probably like, what about the basketball?
No, this is good stuff, man. I'm telling you. Like, I love Rocky, but this is the time of year too. Although I don't know if you saw, the biggest snowstorm in May of Colorado history is upon us allegedly on Friday. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm mad. I'm mad about that. I'm mad at that in multiple ways, including my wife is gone to Hawaii. That's right. My wife went to Hawaii to visit her brother who is doing his PhD work in Hawaii. And she left me with the kids in a snowstorm to go to Hawaii. So thank you. Yeah. And I can say this because she doesn't listen to my show. She listens to Locked On Avalanche, but she doesn't listen to Locked On. All right, let's go ahead and get into the basketball talk.
I was going to ask you, what is this? Is this fake summer then? Like, what are we? I know you have fake spring, but when we get
we're in summer. It just snows in summer here.
It's just one. There's always one like weird snowstorm that comes.
No, we're in spring. Like it snows in spring.
Yeah,
it may snow in summer like one time. All right, so let's talk about the lottery. The Orlando Magic get the number 1 pick. Congratulations to the Magic and the good folks over at Locked On Magic, who, by the way, predicted they would win more than 22 games last season. We're very confident and thought that line was super insulting. Breaking news, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was not.
Number 2, the Oklahoma City Thunder, who after missing out last year, get the number 2 pick. Number 3 was Houston Rockets, pick up the 3rd pick to go with Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun. And number 4, Sacramento Kings finally get some lottery luck. They never move up. It's very, very Kings. They move up to number 4.
To the 4, yeah.
They move up to number 4. So I think there's a number of I'll say this from talking to people overnight. There's a number of outcomes I think that are possible here, including like I don't think it's absolutely guaranteed that this order. That's never true. What I mean is more than most years, more than last year in particular. I think that there is a higher chance that the top 3 to 4 move around. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I do think it's possible.
This is an interesting thing. Like when you watch the NBA draft year after year, what percentage of years do you feel like there's a consensus number 1 versus years where you feel like this year where I feel like maybe you have a favorite, but the 1, 2, 3 gap is not that wide?
I think the 1 and 2 gap is very narrow. I think the 3 gap is pretty wide. I think
is Paolo your 3 then?
8 out of 10. Do what?
Who's your 3 then? Who's the 3rd
Paolo.
one?
It's Paolo.
Okay. Oh.
I feel confident Paolo is going to be 3rd right now. It depends on what I hear out of the Houston stuff, but right now I think it's going to be Paolo. Like to me, I can't see OKC or Orlando not taking Chet or Jabari if they stay in that.
Well, what I mean more though, Matt, is more talent, not who they take. I'm just saying like you feel like Paolo is pretty comfortably the 3rd best prospect of the group.
So, I mean, this is an interesting discussion, right? Like, this is an interesting discussion in that, I can tell you my process. I used to like spend lots of time and break down these things and do all the film work and have opinions. And it's not so much that like I had like a number of like really awful ones. Like most of my takes were pretty boilerplate because you pay attention. We all pay attention to mostly the same sources. I've gotten better at picking those people out, right? The people that are really smart. I'll just say that I kind of have found that to me, I don't necessarily like. I will do the work to try and figure out who I think will be good. But a lot of that comes also after, I think, the draft. Like, I want to see them in Summer League and hear what the teams are thinking about them. I'm trying with the draft in my recent couple of years to really not – I don't want to analyze it as much. Does that make sense? Like, I don't think it really matters what I think of Chet. I don't think it really matters what I think of Jabari. I think it matters, like, after Summer League, I'll be like, ooh. Okay, like I see some stuff here, or ooh, I have some concerns, right? And we can kind of like build off of that. But before the draft, especially with trying to determine what's going to happen, because in my experience, the interview process and workouts are so important for most of these teams. And I'm not saying that that's good process. I'm just saying that's what happens. Like, I think if you bomb your interview, I do think that genuinely hurts you pretty badly.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. Like, especially nowadays, I think GMs are just so worried about a player with a player can sink you, especially a top pick can sink you as a GM.
Yes. I think draft Twitter is extremely good at analyzing guys past pick 10 that are going to be dynamite. And they've had like a number of hits that are excellent.
Yeah.
But the problem is like they're always going to lean towards, but this guy's better. At the top. Like that's how it is right now, is they're just like, look, I get it, but like Chet's better.
Right.
And my thing is I'm like, it doesn't really matter if you think Chet's better. Like it matters what the Magic think at the top. Right. Yeah. And so that's kind of my thing. You were talking about though, like the top 3 picks. I do think that the gap between 1 and 2 is extremely narrow. I personally think that I would say that it would not, this is not reporting. This is a feeling based off of like a long-term bit of knowing things. I would say that I would imagine OKC will be actively like, hey, if you have any interest in moving down to 2, please call. Like, and you're going to say like, big surprise, the team with 2 wants to go to 1. There's a lot of times when the number 2 team is like, no, we're good. No, we're fine here. We're all right. We're totally fine. I think OKC in particular would like to move up to number 1.
Interesting.
Versus most years.
And take who?
Not Chet.
Jabari. Okay.
Now, again, that is not like, I haven't talked to the Thunder since like last night when they got the 2 pick, right?
Yeah.
That is me being like, knowing what I know of that organization, I would imagine that they are probably higher on Jabari and it fits a little bit more with their long-term goals than Chet. But I could be wrong. And I think that it's entirely likely that Orlando could take Jabari, and then the OKC is like, Chet's the best player on the board. There he goes.
What's interesting to me when I like just look at the lottery is that 3 of the top 4 are now Western Conference teams. I mean, Oklahoma City, Houston, and Sacramento. None of those teams, I think, are really a threat to really compete next year, unless there's a crazy offseason that we don't foresee. But they are, just when you talk about coming like up and comers, and you look at that and go, it didn't have to break this way. In fact, the odds weren't going to break this way, that 3 out of the top 4 were going to be from the West, but it just did. And it seems like it always does. I feel like the draft is the great equalizer of always keeping the West on top, because the bad teams are always at the bottom and they always get the best picks. And then you just keep cycling. The West just keeps rising. So that to me, I mean, I don't know if you look at that Oklahoma City, Houston, Sacramento, of those teams in the next 2 years, are any of those teams in your minds a threat to rise in the West?
No.
So they're just long-term builders.
Yeah. I think, especially like I talked to a pretty smart draft advisor, a guy that does consulting work. And I asked him, I was like, do you think there's a franchise game changer? And he was like, look, it's always possible, right? You don't want to say no just because you look dumb later. And he was like, based off of the profiles, probably not. Like, this is probably not a foundational core. There's probably one guy, just because there usually is. But in general, no, I don't think so. I don't look at these guys and go, wow. Now, OKC, if they get, like, let's say that I'm wrong and Chet's amazing, and they get Chet and they got Shea and Giddy, right?
That's
and
that's 3 very, very long players.
Yeah. So, and that's what you want, right? Or they get Shea and they play Jabari next to him. Like, I think Shea and Jabari would be an incredible combo. You find like a big with one of their millions of draft picks that they hit on, and they would be in pretty good shape. I think OKC can definitely rise. With Sacramento, I'm just kind of like, you're gonna have to show me, man. Like, you've just made so many crazy ass decisions, and you have a 4 pick in what's considered to be kind of a 3-player draft.
They're just the closest right now in that they made an all-in move. So you could foresee them trading that pick. Then I know it's number 4. Maybe it's not worth that much, but you could see them using that to try to get, to jump the line or something. And maybe it helps them out. Maybe they're a little bit closer. I'm with you. You have to, like, when you're at the Sacramento Kings, you have to prove to me that you can do this.
Right.
You can't just do it.
With Houston, honestly, not to, like, I'm not Bill Simmons on the subject, but that tweet or that comment was taken out of context. But I was very disappointed with Jalen Green's rookie season.
Really?
He played really great over the last half of the season. Like, put up really good numbers. There's just a lot of the decision making stuff that I am deeply concerned about. Just deeply. I like Alperen Sengun a lot. I think he's a floor raiser. I think he's a not Jokic level, because I don't want to ever compare anybody to a 2-time MVP, but in terms of like the type of player that makes everybody better, Sengun profiles very much like that.
Jason Tatum has taught me something, because I loved Jason Tatum in high school, and then college and the pros and this or that. Like, you almost feel like he was, in my opinion, I felt like he was a little overrated, this or that, just in how people talked about him. The thing was, he always had great body control, a great footwork. It was like a great foundation. And he's only 23. And it's starting to come together for him in a way where you're like, okay, there's all its fits now starting to rise. I feel the same way about Jalen Green. I think the hard parts about players like that is it takes 3 or 4 years for great wing players that have great footwork for it to all come together. It just takes a lot of time. Even Kobe took a while before it all came together. And I think that's the hard part about it is I actually like Jalen Green because I just appreciate footwork. He's so athletic.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, like, look, a terrible decision maker. Like, it's totally not my mold of player, in that way. But I love footwork, and I think he has it in a way that few players do. So I look at it and I go, I think he's going to be good. I just think it's going to take time before he's not annoying. But yeah, I do like his game.
This is part of the thing, though, is it's like, I'm not married to any of these opinions, like there are things that I try not to be married to anything anymore except for my wife. But like, as far as opinions go, I try not to be very set on things and be very open to my priors being wrong. It's like, if you ask me, like, what'd you think of Jalen Green? I'm concerned about his decision making.
Oh, it's terrible.
Do you think he's going to be terrible? No, I don't know. Maybe he gets better. Maybe he grows out of it. Maybe he gets good coaching. Maybe it was just a rookie thing. Maybe it was just the presence. Maybe he was just like caught in a measuring contest with KBJ. Like, Whatever it
Yeah.
was, maybe it's contextual, like all these things could be wrong. But as of right now, like that's where I'm at. So
The one thing I was going to say, though, just to kind of wrap this up, is Oklahoma City is the team to me that I could see make a sudden rise, in large part because I think Shea is probably, we might be sleeping on just how good he is because he hasn't had a chance to like show it in a winning way. But whenever he plays, they're incredible. They're like a really, really tough team, as bad as they are just with him playing. I think he's a really, really great player that fits the modern NBA almost perfectly. And well, if they just keep drafting players, I don't think they're going to rise. But I don't know what Oklahoma City's plan is. I just think they can flip the switch and cash in some of these assets that they have and make a big move if they want to. I don't know if they want to, but they're the team to me that I would not be surprised if they fielded a playoff roster next year if they wanted to.
they lose by 70 and everybody's like, God, look at this joke of a franchise. But if you watch that team night to night, they're professional, they're competitive, they know what they're doing, they're organized. Like, I'm with you in that. I just think if Presti is like, all right, let's actually try and get some NBA players, let's go for this.
Right.
I think it turns
Yep.
very quickly. I'm with you on that. Let's take a break. Come back and we'll talk about the Mavericks and the Warriors and what's the better outcome for Denver between that series. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I want to tell you about the Athletic Greens Company. I am burning about 3,000 calories a week right now. I'm just absolutely like ripping through it, just walking constantly on the treadmill, doing a lot of stuff. And I'm trying to get better about what I'm taking into my body from a health perspective. And that's why I started taking Athletic Greens, because look, it's got this light tropical taste, so it's not going to make you gag like a lot of those supplements do. It's really, it tastes very good, but it's also super healthy. It's got 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens, just all in just one scoop of the stuff. You put it in the water bottle in the morning, you fill it up, you drink it, have it with your coffee, and you're good to go the rest of the day. People take all types of multivitamins, and you want to choose the ones with high quality ingredients. You're not just taking whatever into your body. Your subscription comes with a year's supply of vitamin D, which it's going to be nice and sunny for a while, but we know how long the winters are. We talked about 3 winters here in Colorado, and it's important to have that vitamin D supplement to get you through those winter months. They're a climate neutral certified company, and they purchase carbon credits that support projects protecting rain growth in forests. They got over 7,000 5-star reviews. They're recommended by professional athletes and trusted by leading health experts such as Tim Ferriss and Michael Gervais. And all of this, it's all healthy for you, whether it's paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. All of this stuff is ready for you. All you got to do is a special for you at Athletic Greens Company. They're going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and free five free travel packs on your first purchase. All you got to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NBA network. Again, athleticgreens.com/NBA network to take ownership of your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making us part of your day and your first listen each and every day. Make sure that you check out the Locked On NBA Big Board. It's that draft time. You can get takes on how the picks in the 20s look, all that kind of stuff. Check it out. Host Rafael Barlow along with Sam Ferris, Richard Stamen, and Leif Thillen. You've got mock drafts, player rankings, and of course the big boards. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts, the Locked On NBA Big Board. Adam, tonight, the Golden State Warriors take on the Dallas Mavericks in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. The Warriors obviously toppled the Nuggets in 5 games this season, in this postseason, and the Dallas Mavericks have been not a rival. They haven't played in a playoff series yet. You could tell that like these two teams are on the rise in the Western Conference, or the Nuggets have risen when fully healthy, and the Mavericks have now risen because they've made a conference finals. Luka's made a conference finals. Jokic has made a conference finals. But the Warriors have obviously been on top for a long time. They've won 3 of the past, 8 championships. So all of these things kind of combined. My question for you is, what is a better / worse outcome for the Nuggets between the Warriors winning and the Mavericks winning?
It's hard. I mean, the only thing I can think of when you ask this question is narrative standpoint. Like, I don't know if there is a right or wrong answer for it, like as the future. I mean, let's just do the narrative part first of all. Like, if the Warriors go on to the finals, there's part of me that says, Denver competed with them over the final 3 games. Jokic looked good, but like, okay, they're right there with the team that came out of the West. That could be Denver. if it's Dallas, you almost feel like maybe there's a new young team that leapfrogged Denver. Like Dallas is currently in the Nuggets tier of like haven't gotten over the hump yet. So if they get over the hump, they beat Denver over the hump the way Phoenix sort of did last year. So I feel like there's that. But from a what's better for the future, I'm curious what you think on that way, like what the implications would be for either of these two teams.
I think the Nuggets are slightly in a can't lose situation here, because if the Warriors win, it proves that Dallas is still, like, you get to feel better about it because you're like, oh, okay, Dallas made the run, but they're not championship tier yet. And the Warriors
they just
are
beat
obviously
those phony Suns.
And the Warriors are on like a shortened timeline. Like, it's very evident this season Clay and Steph and Draymond are getting old. Don't know how many years longer they can do this, right? On
Is there any part of you though, Matt? Is there any part of you that feels like we might laugh at saying this? I mean, I'm with you.
Oh yeah,
that they might just be here for the next 5 years, and we're like, well, okay, 39-year-old players still doing it.
In 2012, I said that Manu Ginobili needed to be done, and he played 5 more seasons, and they won a title, and Manu was great. Like, that's how it goes, right? Age saps your consistency. It doesn't sap your ceiling. It doesn't sap how good you can be in any certain game, right? And they've got
young players in the pipeline, Moody and Kuminga and Wiseman. Like,
I'm really high on Kuminga. I'm high on
Moody too. Like, I think both of those guys are really good, like, next stage guys to support the team that they have in place. I don't know if they're like going to take the reins, but they're really good support pieces.
Agree. On the other hand, here's why the Mavericks winning would be good. And this was mentioned in the comments. Somebody beat me to it, which I'm annoyed at. I'm going to pull it real quick. Of course, it's Hurricane. It's always Hurricane. It's better if Dallas wins. Then they think they don't have to get better.
That was honestly going to be my take. Dang it.
Yeah. Is that if the Mavs win and they make the finals, you're just like, we're there. We're there.
Right.
You know, we don't need to go get John Collins. We got Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleba. Hello.
Yeah.
And like, I'll just tell you, like, I'm not trying to dismiss the Mavs. I'm doing it, but I'm not trying to. It's because, like, I've watched 3, 4, 6, and 7 of that last series 3 times each. Like, I watch it clip by clip. I put it on when I'm on the treadmill. I'm like trying to figure out, like, what's Dallas doing? And the only takeaway I seriously have, Adam, is just the Suns completely collapsed. Like, they just played like garbage. That doesn't mean that there's no credit. It's not like if Dallas had played badly, the Suns would have still lost. That's not how it works. But so much of it was just like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I have to walk a thin line here because ESPN trotted out Pat Beverly for some reason for 2 days in a row. Did they give him the 48-hour microphone to just dog on his enemies?
Yeah.
But I have to ask if you feel like there is any truth in his. I mean, one of the things Pat Bev has been saying a lot of things, but one of the things he said was nobody thought the Suns were for real. Like, nobody really was afraid of them. Everybody knew they were kind of a paper tiger. I listened to the Draymond Green show, and he picks the Mavs to win the series. But I was just like, wait, nobody's picking the Mavs. Why is Draymond Green? Do you think there was any truth to other players looking at the Suns and being like, they're good? Because that's what Pat Bev said. They're skilled. They're really good. They got a lot of players. I just know that they are weak. Like, they're weak. And when you watch that series, this is what you're talking about. They were weak.
I struggle with this all season because I asked the question back, like, on Buckets, my betting podcast. I was like, are the Suns a juggernaut? I asked that back in like January. And it was like, well, they have to be. Like, look at their record and all these types of things. And we kind of like talked ourselves into it just because they kept winning and they kept winning and they kept winning.
Right.
But I always did kind of get the sense of, look, when the Warriors were great, when the Heat were great, even when the Spurs were great, like, everybody was like, shit, that team, man, like, you knew what you were up against. And I never got that sense from anybody in the league that they were like, oh no, the Suns. Yeah. But at the same time, like, you and I were also like, it's revisionist because 2 months ago we were like, can this team beat the Suns?
I know.
Like, there's no way this team can beat the Suns.
Right. For sure. They look that good, but yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the whole thing here is trying to figure out, like, okay, where is that gap? Beverly, it's been really interesting because Beverly is right now is the king of the look. You can hate him, but he's not wrong. And I'm always
but that's what I'm saying. I don't want to do that because there's some things he's saying that he is definitively wrong about. Like this is, I'm trying to ask if there's any truth in this one part
thing,
of what he said. And here's the one thing I'll say, Matt, from a basketball standpoint. We talked about, and we almost had to reanalyze the mid-range shot because of how great they were, and I wonder when he was talking about they have a system to win a lot of games in the regular season. Again, I think that's mostly hate, but there is a part of me that thinks they had to be phenomenal from the mid-range, and they were. And I wonder how much of that is a regular season. Teams are not going to adjust their defense in the regular season, but when it comes to the playoffs, boom, let's force you out of that comfort zone.
Sorry, I'm just laughing because it's like there was so much of the take that analytics people. The Suns are taking back the mid-range. And it's like, one, analytics people were like, no, Chris Paul should absolutely shoot mid-range shots. He's the best person in the league at it. But to me, it just gets back to like all that just gets back to I hammered on this with the Suns pretty consistently is I was like, look, the one thing I'm worried about is that they're not versatile. They're not. Like they want their two stars to take mid-range jump shots, for Bridges and Crowder to take threes, for Ayton to roll to the rim and not get the ball ever. And they're going to play drop coverage.
Yeah.
And like they doubled down on that because they brought in JaVale and Bismack. You remember the JaVale, the championship pedigree player, the Nuggets terribly missed out on.
Oh, I can't believe you're doing this. But you're laughing about that one, but do you remember Biyombo too? Like the first like 5 games he had, and it was like, oh my God, what a difference maker.
And like I think Biz is good. It's just that like business. It's just that they had
Biyombo, but not JaVale.
But like they had Ayton, JaVale. Well, Bismack's way better than JaVale. Ayton, JaVale, and Biz. Really? Yeah, I think so. I think he's way better. Like Ayton, JaVale, and Biz. They all do the same things. Like they're all this. Like it's just basically it's like okay. Even if we take your premise that JaVale is better, it's like okay, Biz is like the unevolved Pokemon form, and then like JaVale is one level up. Right. And then Ayton is like the apex.
I see what you're saying. It's not a change of pace. It's not a versatility. Yeah.
There's nothing different about them. They don't bring anything. None of those 3 players bring anything different to the table. And the Mavs really exploit that. And Chris Paul and Devin Booker didn't bring anything different to the table.
Yeah.
And Bridges and Crowder didn't bring anything different to the table. And so that I think is part of it. So ultimately, like, look, if Dallas loses the series and then is like, if they lose a series because they can't provide any pressure at the rim, that's a great point in the comments. If they can't provide any pressure at the rim in the series and Dallas goes like, we got to get that guy, they just had Porzingis, but it wasn't the right fit. John Collins has been linked a lot to them. Like that's, if I were a Nuggets fan, that would scare the out of me. Is the Mavericks with John Collins when you just have like you have a pick and roll option that can hit lobs and switch and he can pick and pop, and then you add whoever you want to play it at. Like if you want to play Collins at 4 in your big lineup, you add like just a traditional center at 5, right? You go get your JaVale or whoever else. That would scare me. Like now I'm like, oh no, like that would scare me as a Nuggets fan. But if the Mavericks make the finals and they're just like, we've got it. We just need like one more guy.
To push back on that, here's one thing I'll say. I do think the Mavs have it in that they have the form. And that's one of the hardest parts about having a young player is you have to realize like, okay, how do we build a team around them? I just think they have the B version of the form. So I do wonder, you're right that they could double down and say, all right, Jalen Brunson's our guy. Here's the big extension for 5 years or whatever. Or they might look at it and go, okay, we need a Jalen Brunson type.
Yeah.
And we need a Dorian Finney-Smith type and a Maxi Kleber type. And then go get the A version of Jalen Brunson. I don't know.
Right. And like Bullock's been really good for them. And Dorian Finney-Smith's been really good for them.
Bullock might be the A version of Bullock, to be honest.
Yeah. Like, so, I mean, they've gotten the guys around them. Versus with the Warriors, I think this is part of it is like they don't have a lot of flexibility to improve. Right? Like, they are so cap strapped. It's basically just like, no, we're gonna let Moody and Kuminga develop, and I'm not gonna include Wiseman until I see him. I just can't. Like the numbers were so bad with him that rookie season, and we haven't seen him in so long. So, I mean, I think it'd be frustrating for Nuggets fans if the Mavs won the series because it's like they made the finals, right? And you talked about like getting jumped by the Mavs, but I also don't know if it's the worst thing in the world just from the perspective of I would like the Mavericks to be satisfied and not hungry if I'm a Nuggets fan.
Yeah. I mean, of course you would. Of course you would rather that.
Right.
I don't know. We'll see what their decision may. We'll also see what's possible for them. I mean, sometimes you know what you need to do, you just can't do it. And they might be one of those teams for a year or something like that.
Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about we have a free agency name or names to talk to you about. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first I want to tell you about Built Bar. Somebody asked in the comments that they're really good. Okay. Excuse me. It's Built Bar. What are you talking about? They're absolutely amazing.
Built Bars really are good.
Clearly the new birthday cake puffs. It's a protein infused marshmallow covered in 100% white chocolate that tastes like a birthday cake. Like that's just amazing. And it's got 16 grams of protein. That's nuts. That's absolutely wild, but it's true. It's got only 150 calories, 16 grams of protein, and only 9 grams of sugar. It's a limited time flavor. It's an amazing option if you're looking for a healthy way to get flavor and variety in your day. Make sure to check it out. You can get the mix box, which has got all sorts of great flavors like raspberry. I love that one. It's got white chocolate, all these different ones, including the puffs, which are, again, the marshmallow, the protein-infused marshmallow, which is crazy. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15. You're going to get 15% off your order. Just use promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. We're also brought to you today by our good friends at Rock Auto. If you're looking for auto parts for your car or truck in any sort of, no matter what it is that you're looking for, they've got everything: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. And if you go to one of these big chain stores, you're going to go in, you're going to ask about it, and they're probably going to tell you, oh, I don't have it, but this other store has it. If you come back, I can get it, or you can go over there. It's a hassle. It's 2022. We don't have time for hassle. Just use rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. It's a family-owned business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and their prices are reliably low for every customer. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution for your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Just write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for making us part of your day and your first listen each and every day. Make sure to check out Locked On NBA. You've got me on Tuesdays with David Ramil, where we tried to push back on the idea that the Boston Celtics were so much better than the Miami Heat. On Wednesdays, you've got John Corrales and Jake Madison, where I'm sure John tried to push back on the idea that the Heat had any chance in the series. And on Fridays, you got Adam. You want more Adam in your life? Adam's more takes from Adam. Who doesn't want more takes from Adam? I know I do. Check him out on Fridays on Locked On NBA. All right, Adam. So final segment here.
Last Friday show, by the way, we power ranked new awards. Very, very entertaining. Because we have the Larry Bird Trophy now and the Magic Johnson. I handed out a few new trophies. It was very fun. The Rasheed Wallace Trophy, which I think should actually be a trophy.
I'm going to go listen to that as soon as we get done with this pod. So you have some names that you would like to talk about in terms of a free agency or trade target for the Denver Nuggets, which has been, quite the topic of conversation amongst Nuggets fans for 5 months. So I want to go ahead and give you some space to talk for a minute.
Well, these are like very, very early ones. And part of this is some resetting expectations, because I know like sometimes people are like the names you like, can we go get Mikal Bridges? And you're like, okay, guys, I don't think you're going to be able to do that. It would be perfect. You're right, but we'll see. So the Martin twins are somewhat interesting to me. Like you just start to look at players that, one, are going to be cheap, that you can afford. That, two, are going to have some of the 3-and-D length, this or that. And you look at Cody Martin and Caleb Martin. So here are the things about them when I think about them. One, Cody's a free agent, unrestricted free agent. I think Caleb is a restricted free agent, has the qualifying offer. We'll see what happens with him. So both of them, we'll see. We'll see how available they are and what the market is for him. I think here's what's interesting about him. In college at Nevada, they played for Eric Musselman, who I think is a very, very underrated coach for a player to come up under.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is he didn't work out in the NBA, in part because I think he was just in some disastrous situations. I mean, there's a graveyard of coaches that come through Sacramento. And you're
Yeah.
like, I don't know, maybe like Mike D'Antoni came to Denver during the lockout year, got 1 year, got fired. It was like, it's his fault. And turns out it was actually probably that the Nuggets were in disarray, trying to go through an ownership change and everything else. I think Musselman is similar to that in that, is he a great coach? Maybe not at the NBA level, but I do think he instilled smart basketball principles in these guys, and you see it in how they play. Like, they're smart players. They know where to be. Can shoot a little bit. I don't know how much I trust their shooting. Cody, I think a little bit less career, 33% three-point shooter, something like that. Caleb, I think this last year, it's not on a ton. Like, we don't have a ton of it. It's not the biggest sample size, but he was a 41% three-point shooter, 36 for career. So 3-and-D smart player that's going to be pretty cheap, I think. Both of those guys are intriguing to me.
I love these two. I've been high on both of them for multiple years, and this year they were absolutely terrific. I'll tell you that there's nothing with the shot mechanics that I'm worried about. You don't watch the Martin shoot and go like,
No.
um,
They were scorers. Like in college, that's what they were. Were like off the dribble jump shooters and scorers.
Yeah, and so those guys are role players that understand how to fill the gaps. They're 6'5", which, like, sure, you'd rather have like 6'7", 6'8". 6'5" is more than good enough. They are solid defenders. Anybody that's in Miami's rotation, the way that Caleb is, you can pretty much say is a good enough defender. Like, for example, like Caleb's playing and Duncan Robinson's not. That says like quite a bit. In a playoff run, Caleb's getting minutes. So to me, like, that really matters. Cody, I think he made a number of like really great hustle plays. If you want a good example of, if you have access to League Pass, there was a Brooklyn Nets game from, I think, November, when the Nets had KD and they beat them. And it was kind of like, whoa, the Nets maybe not be as good as we thought they were. Cody was tremendous in that game. Like, that was the first one this season where I was like, look at Cody Martin. And from then on, like, I watched a lot of Charlotte this season, and so I really like Cody Martin. I got to really like Caleb from watching the Heat this season. I've been higher on the Heat over the back half of the season, and despite all of the histrionics for the game in Denver, I think these, like, the big key here is that they fit so many boxes, which are they veterans? Yeah, like, it's 26. They've been in the league 3 years, right? Older guys aren't going to need to get developed physically.
Right.
Are they capable defenders? Yes, they're capable defenders. Charlotte had a terrible defense, but it wasn't because of Cody. Can they shoot? That's a question mark. I think it's a fair question mark. It's possible they wouldn't shoot as well here because LaMelo obviously creates a lot of great open looks, and that's a high octane offense. Miami shoots a ton of threes, so it's just volume play, which I think actually is probably encouraging for Caleb. And then, are they affordable? Like, can you get them?
Right.
And that to me is like the biggest slice of this, which is like, can you get a guy with size, defensive aptitude, shooting, that's a lower profile target? Because, like, somebody mentioned GP2 in the comments. Like, Gary Payton, even come off that injury, is going to be like one of the most coveted guys. Like, he's just like, oh man, that guy makes so many plays. It's going to be hard to get him. It's just going to be really hard to get him.
By the way, I just looked it up. 6'10" and a quarter wingspan. So, that wingspan to me is just, I've always say this, it's more important to me now than height. So 6'5", it's good and not great height. 6'10" and a quarter wingspan. That's pretty good.
So for me, like, these are the type of guys that I would absolutely, even if we don't we don't wind up talking about these guys as additions for the Nuggets. If you're listening to this, like, that's the kind of guy that you should be talking about, right? Is you're trying to find diamonds in the rough. And what that really means is not just like bad players who could be good. Right. It's guys who are solid and under the radar and affordable that could be really good in a key role for Denver. That to me is just, that's like a really big key there. And it's about, I also think this is important. I think you need guys that don't need minutes. I think that's important. If you have guys that you're like, we have to pay this guy X, or we have to, like, not promise, but offer him, like, hey, this is the role that we see for you, I think that gets tough because Denver's going to have to be flexible. I think in a lot of lineups, they're going to have to be flexible in a lot of situations. They're going to have to kind of go offense or defense or mixed bag or small or big. And so you need to be able to not have to be tied to any one particular alignment. And I think those guys kind of fit that category as well.
I think so too. They could just be guys that you look at. Again, I don't think it's going to move the needle and people are going to be excited, but I think they would play. They might be even in some ways a better Austin Rivers is basically what you're looking at, like a more reliable offensive Austin Rivers who does a lot of the same things defensively. So I don't know. I like the pedigree. I'm intrigued. It just depends on the price. But the measurables are really important for Denver. And it's funny. It's wild to think they have Will Barton has a 6'9" reach wingspan. They have 6'10" and a quarter. That's a pretty, I mean, that matters. It starts to add up.
Right.
Anyway, they're intriguing. Those are guys that I think people can kind of think about. Then you got like Davon, who could be a 3. You could be looking at a bench unit. If you get to that spot where you start to combine a Bones, a Martin with a Davon, and that's a lot of length wingspan wise, a lot of athleticism, a lot of quickness. Maybe it starts to compound. You look at one thing about the Martin twins, they're going to be 27 next season. So they're not young. But that's what Denver's looking for. They're looking for 27-year-olds.
Yeah, that's good. That's like, I think it's better to have the 27-year-olds to me. Last thing here, I think, is this is a name that's kind of been bandied about. And I've mentioned it as like, I would not be surprised if it was the type of player that they targeted. I need to stress that I just think Avery Bradley would be a very, very, very bad fit for Denver.
You do?
Yeah, I don't think Bradley's the guy. Now, if you told me about Austin Rivers,
that's true. That's a great point.
I would have been like, no way. And Austin has really kind of found himself. Bradley, because of his renown in Boston, he kind of makes it a little bit. He could be difficult in terms of he knows how to play his way, right? Bradley is very well regarded by NBA players. So if you're a person that says, I trust what the players say, like that's what I believe in, is what the players think. Then Bradley probably needs to be somebody that you kind of have some belief in. It's not that I disregard what the players say. I just know that for me, I'm always going to kind of get back to, I understand how it feels to be guarded by him, but the fact is that the defense has been worse when he's on the floor. And I think 5 of the last 8 seasons, regardless of where he's played.
The only thing, because I'm with you, I'm not a Bradley guy. But the one thing I would say is Jose Alvarado had a huge impact on that series because he just was a pest and wore down. And like, would Avery Bradley be that? Is he a taller Facu where it's maybe the numbers are going to be bad when he's on the court, this or that, but he gives you 10 minutes of wearing down Steph Curry and Chris Paul and whoever it is, Damian Lillard, whoever it is that the Nuggets go against, and it makes the minutes he's not on the court more valuable. That's the only way I could play devil's advocate to talk myself into him.
Shot 39% this season with the Lakers. He shot 40. Well, last season was a mess. He shot 33% overall for the season. He had very wide splits between Miami and Houston. He shot 36% for the Lakers in 2020, 38% with Memphis in 14 games. Sorry, I'm looking at all he's been traded so much. 35% in 2019.
His basketball reference page is very long.
Yeah. I mean, he's been around. Like he's bounced around for a lot of reasons.
Gonna be 32 next year. Like, I don't know. Small, undersized defensive guards at age 32. Like, what's the track record there?
Yeah, and I just kind of get to. I think the Martins are good at 6'5", right? And
27. You kind of know exactly what they are.
Bradley's 6'3". I think your cutoff points, it's got to be 6'5". Like I think they need to be 6'5" or taller. I know that you're probably gonna lean more towards the wingspan, and I think that's fair. If they've got if
you're an outlier like a Bones.
Yeah. If there's like a 6'3" with like a 7-foot wingspan.
Right.
Then sure, go
for
it.
You can't be 6'2", but a 6'4" wingspan. It's like, hey, it's a positive wingspan. It doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter,
man. It's got to be able to contest the shot. So, all right, that's gonna wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets for a Wednesday. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Make sure to check out the other great Locked On shows: Locked On Rockies, Locked On Broncos with off-season workouts going on, and of course, Locked On Avs. Go Avs! Great win over the Blues last night in overtime. I think it's gonna be a long series. I'm nervous about it. Make sure to follow Adam on Twitter at Adam_Mares. We'll see you guys again tomorrow with another episode.